Hello, hello, everyone. Glad you can all make it tonight. Had a little bit of a hiccup last night. My day did not go the way it was planned, and by the time 6:30 rolled around, I had no gas left in the tank. So thanks for waiting an additional 24 hours to get us to here. Uh, anyway, yeah. So hope everyone's doing well tonight. Let's see who's hanging out in the chat. Who are the true believers? Nitty, good to see you, man. He's always there. I think I'm in a lot of your streams too, just hanging out and saying hi and all that. Tell me more. Hello, hello. Monkey the typewriter. Hello. Great to see you. Pandora's Pinata. Yeah, you were here yesterday for the failed stream, so thanks for coming back. I'm glad I didn't lose you as a customer. Jimmy Thompson, welcome. Nice to see you here. And Josh Capshaw. I don't recognize your name. Welcome. Glad to have you here. You are a true believer. I have christened you a true believer. No take backsies. I'm afraid you're part of the club now. So yeah, it's good to have everyone here. Yeah, so not much has gone on this past week. Had a lot of stuff going on. I'm in my last week of vacation from work, so I was doing a lot of stuff around the house and kind of getting things ready for me to go back to work. Um, and yeah, that involves things like furniture delivery, did some firewood chopping, and yeah, lots of stuff going on as I prepare to go back to my office in about a week. Um, so yeah, tonight we're going to be talking a little bit more about some Christian apologetic videos that I saw. These are ones that I just chose, and I have not looked at them at all. I'm going completely off of just what the description here says, and we'll just roll from there. Rest of the stuff going on this week, I'll be appearing on the Kentucky Atheists live stream Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'll be there for a couple hours. And then from there, I'm going to do a quick switch over to hosting the line with Matt Dillahunty. It'll be the Sunday show. So I'm really looking forward to that. I like hanging out with Matt and Jimmy. Speaking of hanging out with Jimmy, I'm actually not as prepared as I should be for this episode because my plan was to prepare today. And then Jimmy this morning invited me to play a certain popular game on Steam, and I hopped on, and there went my afternoon. So, so anyway, I just hopped off there, and I'm on to here. So, I was really tempted to postpone, like just to cancel the week and just say I'm playing this game, but no, I'm not. I'm not that unprofessional. I am unprofessional, but I'm not that unprofessional. Anyway, before we roll into it, Mr. Wallace, good to have you here. Hey, James, nice to see you again. And yeah, that's all we got so far. So may or may not have been Power World. No, it was definitely Power World. Fun game. A really, really fun game. Interested to see kind of what's the I won't call it fallout, but there's some legality issues around Power World. That's going to be interesting to see what happens over the coming months. Hey, Earl, nice to have you. All right, so let's just kind of roll right into it. Thea should call in. I should probably post that into the banner and all that. So let me do that here really quick. As I said, I'm not prepared because I was playing a video game all night, but that's okay because we're just gonna roll with it. So make a quick banner. We can say, "Hey, theists, call in." We'll do that, and we'll do that. Add banner, make it scroll. Hey, it's supposed to scroll. Scroll the banner, save. There we go. Okay, cool. And then I'll go ahead and post it in our chat as well, and then we can get rolling. Kind of a quiet week this week, I think. Not really much going on in the skeptic community scene, at least nothing that I've seen in the past few days. Boom. Pin message. Hey, okay. Hey, we're all professional now. Awesome. All right. So let's go take a look at this new channel that I found. Present, share screen. All right. So we have not looked at this. I have not looked at this at all. This is a completely new channel. I completely just chose this video based off of just the title. This might be some really low-hanging fruit. We'll see. If not, if it is, I'm going to maybe try to find something a little more challenging next time. But this is a video from a a channel called Gracely Inspired, 193,000 subscribers. 193,000 subscribers. Let's take a look at what their stats are looking like, because kind of noticed last week, like, hey, we had some. I can't. Huh, weird. I can't make it bigger. Embiggen. There we go. Have 193,000 subscribers, 151 videos, 12 million views. Based in the United Kingdom. So okay. I wonder if they're gonna have any British accents, or maybe an accent from the United Kingdom. We'll see. But anyway, let's go ahead and listen to these people and see what they have to say.
9 clear signs you will see when you are called or chosen by God. Sign number 1, an insatiable hunger for righteousness.
All right. So this is 9 signs that you'll feel inside. Clear signs that you'll feel inside when God has called or chosen you. Is there a difference between called and chosen? I feel like there isn't. If God called you, then you're chosen, right? You're God. This is like a Calvinist thing where God's saying, "Oh, I choose you," and then you're just chosen. You're just in the club, whether you like it or not. No matter what you do at that point forward, you're just gonna be saved. Or is this something you can reject? I don't know. We'll see if they go into details. But anyway, yeah, 9 clear signs God has called or chosen you. Sign number 1, an insatiable hunger for righteousness.
One of the most apparent signs God has called you is that you will have an unquenchable desire for the things of God. This is because when God calls you,
What are the things of God? Like, I obviously this is Christian. So, but what are the things of God that they just mentioned? Because the Bible says all kinds of things about this God. It says that God is the creator of both good and evil. God slaughters just as much as he saves. In fact, he probably slaughters way more than he saves in the Bible. Any of the saving that's promised in the Bible is future saving. Um, what what are the things of God? Because I can point to any part of the Bible and go, yeah, God's being a monster here. So if I feel those things that I notice in the Bible, is God calling to me? Because I feel, I don't know, just a irresistible urge to go to the neighboring village and slaughter the inhabitants, and of course, keep the virgins for me and my clan. Obviously, if I have that desire, does that mean God is calling me because he's those are the things of God? That's what he commanded. I don't know.
his primary aim will be to renew your spirit. This
What does what does renew your spirit mean? Sorry, I don't mean to keep on pausing, but I got a feeling it's going to be just a smorgasbord of just platitudes and Christian terminology that is it's just vapid. It doesn't mean anything. What does renew your spirit mean? Cheer you up, make you not depressed? Is there a stamina meter above your head that God's going to fill right up with His Holy Spirit? Don't know.
this will lead to you having a strong zeal and hunger for the things of God. Jesus said in Matthew 5, "Blessed are they that hunger after righteousness, for they shall be filled." You might discover
Again, so what are the things of God? Like there's no description here about what the things of God are. It's just it's really just like a fill in the blank. The things of God is going to be different from person to person depending on their upbringing, their values, their background, their interpretation of the Bible, the influences they had, what religion were they brought up into, was their pastor or their religious leaders zealous or liberal or conservative, were they like fire and brimstone spitting like hate mongers, or were they super like soft and progressive pastors who are like, yeah, it's okay, God's going to take care of everyone just fine, and no one's going to go to hell, or if you do go to hell, you're going to be there just maybe temporarily. Yas is going to kind of just do some refinement, some molding, then you can be allowed into heaven. Like this video is not giving us anything solid to talk about. They're keeping it vague because this is a video, it seems, that is trying to just cater to the largest audience possible. You bring your own interpretation to this video the same way you do to the Bible. And it's kind of brilliant if you think about it, because now this video has the largest appeal. Really, it's a lot like a Ray Comfort type apologetic, where he's going to say something vague or something that's supposed to make you feel guilty, and he lets you do the work. He lets you fill in the blanks, and he takes advantage of that murkiness, that murky water, in order to kind of swim around and do his tricks. It really feels like this is the same thing that's going on here.
that you will start to feel a sudden urge to read the Bible. listen to sermons, or interact
What if I feel a sudden urge to start reading the Quran? Like, oh man, that Quran, I'm gonna start reading that book. Does that mean Allah is the God that's choosing me, or is it? I don't know.
with other believers. This isn't just a passing interest, it's a deep burning passion that you can't ignore. The reason God will do this is because He wants to fill your spirit by equipping you with the knowledge and power you need. Sign number 2.
Okay, so you'll be drawn to read the Bible. It'll be a deep-seated and long-lasting desire and commitment to do so. And this is God noticing your wants and instilling in you a desire to learn these things. But again, what if it's some other holy book I'm drawn to? What if I don't know, Book of Mormon? What if I say, hey, this Joseph Smith guy had it right, and then I'm going to go read that book, and that book really touches me. Um, I would ask these people, how do you determine whether or not that polling that does that fulfillment that you're seeking and that you're feeling from this God figure, where does it come, or what God is it coming from? How do you know? How do you know it's not coming from a trickster God or coming from another a God that's perhaps not described in the Bible, but some other entity entirely? All right. Anyway, sign number 2, you get easily convicted of crime. I don't know.
You easily get convicted. When God calls you, another obvious sign you notice will be that you will always feel convicted whenever you do something wrong.
Okay, you'll always feel convicted. So you always feel guilt. You'll always feel guilt when you do something wrong. This is something that even I today contend with. I do get sensations of guilt, not because of anything that I've necessarily done wrong, but because that's the conditioning I was under growing up in the church I was in. If you talk to somebody who wasn't raised in the Christian religion, or let's say like we do a poll and say, hey, 100 people that weren't raised in any type of religion, do you feel guilt on a daily basis? Do you feel convicted on a daily basis, or do you feel like, do you just feel that overwhelming, like not overwhelming, just that overclouding sense of guilt or some type of like judgments hanging over you? Willing to bet if you do something, like if you hold a poll like that, willing to bet you aren't going to get many people who say that. Compare that to say 100 Christians who are all raised in different denominations of the church. Willing to bet your stats can be quite a lot higher over who's going to be get those sensations or not. James Apperson says conviction or convicted equals judged by self and by God. Sudden crippling shame. Yeah, that's another good question too. Like, where's that conviction coming from? Is that coming from you, or is that coming from a God? Because we all, I mean, I think it really depends on whether, like, kind of what your level of empathy is. If you have a high level of empathy and a high level of compassion for others, you may question yourself a lot more and start thinking about, hey, maybe what I said the other day was not very tactful, and maybe I kind of, hurt somebody's feelings, or maybe my words were cutting than they should have been. If you have a high sense of empathy and compassion, you may start thinking about those things quite a lot. And humanity is a mixed bag. You're gonna have people who feel those things, people who don't. People who don't have such high levels of sympathy or empathy and compassion might never consider, hey, maybe my actions are my actions or my words are affecting others negatively. So it could be that, and also on top of that, Christianity is a religion of judgment. It's a religion of, hey, God is a compassionate being. God values the meek and the mild and the sheep. It could be that, hey, this video is kind of tapping into those types of people, the ones that feel high levels of empathy and compassion, a desire for justice, desire for equality. Could be tapping into that and like kind of really appealing to those people, and then exploiting those characteristics. I don't want to call them weaknesses, because I think empathy and compassion are actually can be quite strong in many cases. But they're exploiting those strengths and taking advantage of, I'm gonna say, like a back door behind them, saying, "Hey, all these feelings you're feeling, this is obvious because of God has, plans for you, or God is judging you, or things like that." Phantom X11. It comes from the Holy Spirit. I don't know if that's sarcastic or if that's serious, but if it's serious, how do we know it's coming from the Holy Spirit? Why couldn't it just be a product of the brain that's experiencing these feelings? Organic perception. Welcome. I don't know if I've seen your name before. That question can come from either empathy or anxiety. Yeah, anxiety too. If you feel like you're constantly, I mean, we do live like, especially in the United States, like we live in like kind of an anxious society. Never know kind of what's going to happen next, or even not just the United States, just the entire world in general. We have news that hits us, like we can have a disaster across the world and we know within minutes. So we can always get hit at any time by tremendously bad news. A war has broken out, a terrorist attack has occurred, a natural disaster has occurred. Political instability in certain countries that maybe we don't want to see political instability in, one nation attacking another. uh, yeah, you can kind of start operating under a kind of a, I don't know, just constant dread of what's going to happen next. And also on top of that, you get the overload, the kind of just the disaster fatigue that seems to set in, where we're not even dealing with the last disaster properly before the next one hits. Oh, hey, now we got a school shooting. Oh, hey, now we have multiple homicides at a building. It can be too much to handle for people. Like we weren't designed, like humans were not built for this, for lack of a better word. We're wired for smaller communities and smaller scale problems, and with globalization occurring and all these things, um, we have just we're literally taking on the problems of the world and thinking about them constantly, and we're not quite wired for that, at least not yet. Yeah, empathy is exploitable by the right people. James says Professor Paul Bloom has a great video on Big Think where he explains how empathy is bias and that we should try to be compassionate instead of empathetic. That'd be an interesting video to watch, I think. Paul Bloom on Big Think. I'll make a note of that and I'll maybe watch a little bit later. Okay, Phantom X says that's what Christians think. Yeah, that's exactly what the Christians think. They think that that's why non-Christians only feel guilty when God's calling to him. Yep. Cool. Hey Bragg. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for promoting my channel or the stream a little bit earlier. Uh, what else we got? Anybody new here? Nope. Eric, did my super chat go through? Did it? I'm looking at I'm looking at I'm looking at this through StreamYard. So hopefully super chats. There's a starred. Oh, hey, it did. Okay, great. Sorry. Super chats don't appear in the StreamYard main view. It appears in a different one. So yeah, I killed Earl $10. Thank you so much, Earl. Got a new job today with a sign-on bonus, so I'm spreading the love. Have a beer on me. Well, hey, thank you so much. I killed her. I really appreciate that, and congratulations on the job, especially with the signing bonus. That's great. Those are always the nice jobs that people like to get into. Did you know that a signing bonus? It's kind of lost its meaning, but a signing bonus used to be intended to basically it was kind of like a make you whole bonus. Like in a lot of times, like certain jobs, they kind of like slap the golden handcuffs on you with like stock investments that aren't 100% vested yet, or retirement matching that hasn't vested yet. So if you leave your job, you sacrifice the things that aren't fully vested. Originally, a signing bonus was meant to compensate you for that sacrifice from leaving your old job and coming to the new job. But now it's just a extra piece of cake on the platter that they hand you for like your job. It doesn't really quite like it's not really there anymore for making you whole anymore. Probably some companies still do that, but for instance, my current job when I signed on 5 years ago now, I had a modest signing bonus on there, and I didn't sacrifice anything from my old job. It was just there. So yeah, thank you so much, Earl. Appreciate it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it because when something start appears, I need to see it over there. Auto star super chats. What if I don't auto star super chats? Will it appear in the main chat? We'll take a look and see how it go. So uh okay. And so yeah, nice to see you. I'm sort of new to chat, at least for tonight. Like chat, like YouTube chat. You type things and you go. Okay. Anyway, let's keep on going. So yeah, easily get convicted. So you feel guilty is kind of what they're going at.
Let me explain. When God calls you, the first thing he does is to separate you from the nature of sin. So whenever you do something sinful, your conscience will come alive, and you will immediately have a sense of regret each time you do something wrong.
Is this really God making you sensitive to sin? Wouldn't a better explanation be I live in a society and I understand that my actions affect others, and when I do something wrong, that increases the chances of something being wrong done back to me. So I feel something. I feel a fear of that. Maybe that fear is internalized as empathy and compassion for others, or it's just a magic man in the sky giving you that feeling.
Whenever you feel a strong sense of conviction, it is actually a good thing. It means that the Spirit of God is actively trying to purge you and help you become a clean person.
But here's the thing, though. So when as we were talking about earlier about how some of these groups they hijack these natural emotions and they kind of throw them into overdrive, um, set up a system or set up an ecosystem where you as a person cannot do anything right. You're so sinful and so bad and so steeped in your transgressions and debauchery that literally nothing you do is good enough for God. So you are now in a state where literally everything you do falls short. You nothing you can do can get you out of that. Imagine growing up from a child into an adult under those conditions. You're essentially at that point classically conditioned to just feel guilty at literally everything you do. That's one of the things that I had to like really work on when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses is getting rid of that constant fear of guilt, and it'll still creep up on me. Lots of people say, "Oh, I've been deconverted now for 40 years, and I still wake up at night with sometimes thinking about hell." Thankfully, I don't have that, but I do have the guilt. I do have like guilt baggage that is a result of being raised in that religion. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, is this God giving this to you, or is this just basically the emotional abuse you've endured your entire life ever since you were born?
In fact, the Bible talks about this in 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 10. It says, "For godly sorrow leads to repentance, whereas worldly grief produces death."
For godly sorrow leads to repentance, whereas worldly grief produces death. What scripture is that? Did he say what scripture that was?
Talks about this in 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 10.
Second Corinthians 7 through 10. So Second Corinthians is what? That's Paul's letters to the Corinthians. Second Corinthians. Yeah, Paul wrote Second Corinthians from Macedonia a year or so after writing First Corinthians. Is this one of the generally accepted letters of Paul? Well, I won't bother researching that. But so, okay, this is basically Paul giving us a platitude
It
here.
says, "For godly sorrow leads to repentance, whereas worldly grief produces death."
So, what does this even mean? What does godly sorrow mean? Is it just the bad feelings that you get? And that leads to repentance. So, feeling bad leads you to not want to feel bad. Whereas worldly grief, what is the difference between worldly grief and godly sorrow? Produces death. How does this even follow? Like how vapid is this? If only it was written more clearly.
Sign number 3, you will lose friends.
Okay, so this kind of hits home because, like I said, I'm from a cult and I was very limited in what friends I could have. And friends could be pulled from me at any time because all that friend had to do was basically step out of line and not be upstanding Jehovah's Witness, not follow the rules, smoke a cigarette, drink a little bit too much, date a worldly girl. Any number of things can make me lose a friend.
When God calls you, don't be surprised if your friends start leaving you. You might find out that people you used to hang out with just don't seem to understand you anymore. They might start
It's like, you've been my friend for 10 years. Why are you trying to convert me to a religion now? Because I'm sure that's what some religions will be forcing you to do. Well, that's what the witnesses do. I mean, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you better go witness for Jehovah. You better go make more witnesses. That's what a good Jehovah's Witness does. Um, yeah. So obviously, if you're going to have such a rapid change in the way you conduct yourself and also in the way that you interact with your friends, you are at a higher risk of losing friends because your friends are friends with you for a reason because they liked your personality. You had similar interests. You did things together. When all of a sudden you join a religion and now you've switched from doing the things that you enjoy doing with another person to trying to convert them, maybe throwing out judgmental comments about, oh, hey, maybe we shouldn't go out drinking. You shouldn't drink so much anymore, or you shouldn't be doing, whatever drugs anymore, or you shouldn't be hanging out with these other people anymore. When you suddenly take on an air of judgmentalness, when you or judgment, um, start passing judgment, start giving unwanted, advice based off of your religious beliefs, yeah, you're gonna probably put a strain on a relationship of your friends, and some of them might just leave because they'd be like, "Well, hey, you know what? You changed," and it's okay for friendships to end and change and grow and do things over time, but when you are changing yourself, you can probably expect other people to take notice of that and go, "Yeah, yeah, this person, I like what this person's doing. I'm going to grow closer to them," or "I don't like what this person is doing, and I want to, pull away from them." It's this happens all the time in normal relationships, and if you're going to be undergoing a change because you're a Christian religion, you're going to see it too. But here's the thing too, like uh, I've had friends come and go over the years. Even after I deconverted 15 years ago, I've made some new friends. I've lost some old friends. Even some of the new friends I made, grow apart. We don't talk very much to each other anymore. Um, but there's no God involved in that. Like I lost friends after deconverting, made friends and lost friends after deconverting. That's not evidence that God is in my life.
Start to distance themselves from you or cut you off completely. And this can be very difficult, especially because these are people that you may have known for years, or maybe even decades. But the truth is, when God will call you, you will start to see things differently, and your priorities will shift. He'll remove them because he doesn't want anyone to be a hindrance to your calling. In fact, even if he doesn't remove them, you might
So now it's not you're removing friends out of your life. The friends aren't removing themselves out of your life. It's God removing them out of your life. God is like doing a cleaning house and getting rid of all those bad relationships around you. How do you demonstrate any of this? Like, and why would a God even care what friends you have? Like, if the truth is so powerful and His word is so powerful and you are chosen, why would God even care about the people in your orbit? Especially if you're Calvinist type where you're saved and you're chosen, you're one of the elect. Like, no, nothing that you do is going to affect the outcome. So why does God even care about any of that? In fact, you would want to keep those people in your orbit because then you can influence them to be saved. Or if that's a thing in Calvinism, I probably not, because I mean you're saved beforehand or not. Or if God's so interested in politics and the U.S. staying a godly Christian nation, wouldn't God want to keep these people in your orbit so you can influence them? So you can influence them to be more godlike, even though they aren't elect, they can still vote as if they're elect, right? You can influence people, and you can say, "Hey, we should vote this way," or we should, all manners of political influence. Why would God want to remove those people out of your life? You'd want them in your life.
find out that they will start leaving you on their own. This is because the light in you convicts them of the darkness in them.
Okay, so now the light in you convicts the darkness in them. Obviously, these people are leaving because your radiant presence is just making them feel so guilty. Or maybe they just don't like you anymore. Like maybe they don't like the judgmentalness. Maybe they don't like the prejudice. Maybe they don't like the you pushing scripture on them all the time. No, obviously you have something inside of you. You are now special. You are now repulsive to evil. Uh, Yeah, just, so self-centered and just so egotistical that it's not it's kind of the reverse. It's not you, it's me. It is that. It's not you, it's me. It's not you leaving, it's me pushing you away because I'm so awesome.
For example, when you study John chapter 6, the Bible says many of Jesus' followers cut off from him and walked with him no more. And while it may be painful at first, know that this is all for your own good. So if you're going through this right now, don't let it get you down. Sign number 4, trials and temptations. An obvious sign that will show that God has called you is that you will face an incredible amount of temptations. Many people
You will face an incredible amount of temptations. So, what are temptations? The the pull of you back to old habits or things that you might have dropped after you became a Christian? Like if you grow up eating a certain food and then all of a sudden you're not allowed to eat that food anymore, you're going to feel the pull towards that food because your brain wants to have that stimulation again. This is just normal human nature, isn't it? So isn't this just people just getting into their habits and being creatures of habit? We want to remain in those habits. No, of course not. This is sin pulling you back away from God.
Mistakenly assume temptations suddenly stop once God calls them. This is a false belief.
Was that like a reenactment of Satan tempting Jesus?
You will face an incredible amount
That's
of
Jesus, right?
temptations. Many people mistakenly assume temptations.
And that's Satan. Where's the tail? Where's the horns? Well, it's like fire effect. And that's just a stick. Like, did they just arrive on set on scene and just picked up kind of whatever they found around there? And this is like, okay, here's a stick. You're Satan. Here's a bathrobe. You're Jesus. Is this Jesus fresh out of the shower? I don't know.
Suddenly stop once God calls them. This is a false belief. In fact, if before you were called by God, you were only tempted 10 times a day, your level of trials and temptations will increase by 100 times a day.
If if you experience 10 temptations a day and then you convert, it'll go up 100x. You're going to go from 10 temptations a day to 1,000. What? This could be expressed in a math function.
This is a false belief.
I want to go over that
In
again.
fact, if before you were called by God, you were only tempted 10 times a day, your level of trials and temptations will increase by 100 times a day.
Increase by. I don't think somebody proofread that. Nobody went back and said, like, where'd they get that number from? It's just really impressive round number. It's 100 times a day. Ship it. And then they just said it and they put it into a video. 10 times a day up to 1,000.
God's calling upon your life doesn't mean the devil will leave you alone. In fact, you will face one of the fiercest levels of temptation you've ever faced. The reason the devil will intensify this is so that you get overwhelmed and discouraged. Notice that in Matthew chapter 4, the Bible tells us Jesus was driven into the wilderness to be tested by the devil. If you must serve God, you must be prepared for times when you will be tempted. In fact, people who never used to offend you before will suddenly start to get on your nerves. This will be the pure
Kind of the same way that people you used to not offend will now be offended by you. It's as if completely overhauling your personality and your values, and instead of being your genuine self, you're now being a reflection of some religion's idea of a good and proper person. Yeah, that might cause some friction between your friends, maybe a little bit, right?
period in which your calling and standing with God will be tested. But you should not be afraid to face temptations, but rather you should be confident to confront it, knowing
Hey, Jesus, you're sitting a little close behind me. Like it looks like Jesus is sitting directly behind him. Like just if you just scoot forward a little bit, now you're kind of cuddling. Big spoon, little spoon.
God is more than able to deliver you from all manners of temptations.
Yeah. So who's tempting who now? Right here, Jesus is tempting me, sitting so close.
Sign number 5, you will be filled with authority.
All right. So you not only be filled with a conviction, being convicted, you'll also be filled with authority. What a mix! You're gonna feel guilty all the time, but you're gonna feel authoritative in that guilt.
When God calls you, He will bestow a lot of power upon you. This power that will come from above will be accompanied by a high level of authority. Now,
What is authority? Like what is authority? Like authority is granted from one power to another, right? Like in the United States, the authority of the government is granted to it by the people, and then the government can grant authority to like sub governments underneath it. You have the federal, then the state, and then communal governments. But we can demonstrate that those entities actually exist. We can actually demonstrate that yes, there is a transition. There's a granting of power from one to the other. And where does the authority of the people come from? Probably numbers. It's like we're the most, like we have the most numbers and we have a lot of sticks, so we're authority. But the thing is though, like where the authority that you're feeling inside, you can't demonstrate comes from anywhere except yourself. God is granting authority to you. How do you know this? How does any of this like how can any of this be tested? How can any of this be falsified? How can any of this be shown to actually either be true or false? And what practical thing does it do for you? Like what is granted to you that you can demonstrate to others that other people don't have? Like I'm a non-believer. According to this channel, I shouldn't have any of these things. So show me a Christian who has authority and can demonstrate it in a way that I can't.
Now, this authority doesn't mean you will boss people around or make demands. It's a different kind of authority, one that comes from humility and grace. This means you might
I thought it came from God. Now it's coming from humility and grace. This is very confusing. But how does authority come from humility and grace? Like I could endeavor to be humble and gracious. What authority does that give me?
find yourself doing things you normally won't do from time to time. You might wake up and suddenly find yourself feeling like preaching or praying for someone. The Holy Spirit will begin to move you just like He moved the apostles. You won't be in control of yourself. You might see a sick person and you find yourself
Now I'm not in control of myself. So is God like taking the wheel? Is Jesus taking the wheel occasionally and compelling me to do things? I thought that violates free will.
laying hands on them to pray for them. You won't know why you are doing this, but you will just have that authority from above.
Okay, do I have authority, or is authority being exerted on me? Because they just talked about mind control just a few seconds ago. This is like word salad. Like none of this connects to anything. This is all just vapid. It's vapid and confusing, and it doesn't actually lead anywhere. None of this can be tested. None of this can be verified. This is just like Christian feel good propaganda. And yeah, for his cause, I am an ex-Joe's Witness. So yeah, that's what I am. Maya, where did I see Maya? Maya, good to see you.
Naturally, you might be very shy in real life, but when God calls you, you will find out you will become very bold and full of authority. You could stand in front of large crowds and speak to all classes of people without feeling afraid.
Okay, I was a Jehovah's Witness my entire life. I spoke in front of many, many people, like large numbers of people. Like I think the largest audience, live audience I spoke in front of was 3,000 people. That fear does not go away. It just simply doesn't. This guy here is trying to claim that, hey, once you have the that conviction inside of you, that power of God, that fear is just going to go away. How do you even test this?
In the Bible,
You can maybe self-justify it. You can maybe somebody might be able to say to themselves, "Yes, I do definitely feel that fear is absolutely gone when I talk in front of people." In which case, cool. How do you convince me that that's actually the case? And is this perhaps maybe a more concrete criteria to determine whether God's actually blessing you or not? Like, if a person accepts God into their heart, whatever that means, becomes a Christian, and then their fears evaporate overnight, that would be fairly compelling, at least for personal justification. That would be fairly compelling. That might be a way to determine whether somebody is a true believer or not, but it would only every person would have to judge that for themselves. You would not be able to like collectively determine that, hey, yeah, okay, you don't have fear, you don't have fear, you don't have fear, you still have fear, so you're not really a true Christian. There'd be no way to verify that. But at least that would be like surefire, not even surefire. That'd be personal justification for believing that a God is actually like blessing you. Uh, the thing is though, how do you know you're not necessarily lying to yourself? Maybe you're under a delusion. People have dropped their fears out of delusions before, right? Thinking that they're maybe invincible, or they have like a psychotic break, or they get under delusion that they're like a Superman, or they are impervious to harm, or something can't hurt them, or that person's not going to shoot that gun. And we can see people have that type of delusion all the time. How do we know that's not necessarily happening here?
every time God called anyone, He spent time encouraging them to be bold and fear not. Sign number 6, persecution. God's calling comes with glory, But that glory also attracts adversity. When you sign up to be a God's representative, you're signing
You sign up. Is there like a recruitment center I can go to? It's like kind of like the army. They give me a bunch of promises and they probably won't fill. For his cause, Eric, I'm about to go to a JW meeting at a family member's house next Thursday. So you're going to a meeting at a family member's house. Are you still under COVID restrictions, or is it a book study? Do they have book studies anymore? So back in my day, there was 3 meetings a week. There was the 2 meetings at the Kingdom Hall, which is the church building they have, and then one of those meetings a week was a book study. Basically, is where the congregation splits up into like 5 or 6 groups, and they study the book of the week. And those are usually held at individuals' homes. Some book studies are actually held at the Kingdom Hall as well, but for the most part, just to split people up, it's at people's homes. Oh, they're coming to visit. Oh, okay, I gotcha. I gotcha. The terminology you used, you're going to a JW meeting. Meetings are what they call church service. It's not going to church, it's going to the meeting or going to a meeting. So sorry, the terminology kind of overlap there. Okay, so you have some people heading over to your house to talk to you. They're coming to visit. Okay. They come once a week to their house. So you're going to go over to the friend's house at a family member's house next Thursday. You're going to talk to witnesses. Okay, well, have fun. So I'm guessing you say you're a Christian too, right? For his cause. Yeah, you're a Christian. Yeah. So, I mean, have fun. That's all I can say. If you try to whip out the Bible and interpret the Bible in a certain way, they're going to whip out the Bible and interpret it in a certain way. And you guys are just going to go back and forth, and not a fortune teller, but I'm willing to bet you're not going to make much progress with either direction. It's just going to be a stalemate of, well, the Bible says it here, the Bible says it here. The witnesses are really, really, really good at proof texting. They're great at saying, I need to make this point. I'm going to go to this scripture over here, read it to you, and then boom, my point has been proven. That's what they do. So if you try to convince them that your doctrine is more true than theirs, you're not going to get very far. But I encourage you, though, from your point of view, even though you're probably not going to sway them any direction, ask yourself as you're comparing doctrine, how do we actually really tell who's right and who's wrong? Because if you come to a point of contention in scripture, like let's say you are interpreting a scripture a certain way, or you have a certain teaching that's completely opposite of what you're used to. Like I'm not sure what your particular flavor of Christianity is, but let's say you're a Trinitarian. Chances are you're Trinitarian if I were to play the odds, but let's just assume you're a Trinitarian. They're Unitarians. That's a mutually exclusive proposition. Like you can't have both. So one of you is wrong about things, or both of you is wrong about things. Maybe that's God doesn't exist. So the question you should be asking yourself, I encourage you to ask yourself, is how can we determine who's right and who's wrong here? Or even to say, as an outsider, as a person, if I'm brand new to both of these faiths, how do I determine who's right and who's wrong? Or if both of them are wrong, what tools would I use? How do I differentiate their claims? And I give you a bit of a different perspective instead of just going, I'm on my side of the fence, you're on your side of the fence. Let's do a Bible interpretation, face off. Instead of being on either side of the fence, go out to the street and look in and go, if I'm an outsider, who would be more convincing and why? Hey Al, how you doing? Fighting demons in your sleep? I hope that's not literal. I'm guessing you have nightmares? Maybe figurative? If you care to elaborate. If not, that's fine too. But interesting comment there.
signing up for a life of persecution. You're signing up for the life of
Death is here. I knew it was going to happen eventually. Hi, Death. Welcome to my stream.
someone who is going to be criticized and judged. People who knew you might be the first to look down on you. They might even threaten to cut off ties with you. In fact, you might be surprised.
Okay, are people being pushed away by me, or are they cutting ties? like they now give us conflicting information. It's like each one of these points was written by somebody different, or probably more likely an AI wrote this. This is probably more of what is going on here. This is probably just vapid shit written by an AI. In which case, we're wasting our time here. But it's fine. We're gonna finish through this video, and then we'll go more dumpster diving for more channels, and maybe we'll find something that's a little bit more solid. We could be just wasting our time here. This could just be AI generated shit because we just got conflicting statements from this video.
That even Christians will persecute you. Maybe God might be using you in ways that others haven't seen. And so they will
Yeah, trucker. I that happens to me too. My brain will get flipped on and I can't turn it off for the life of me. Like I need to just become exhausted and then fall asleep. I don't know why it does that.
be the first to rise up against you, telling you that you aren't of God. But don't let that discourage you. Remember, you're not doing this for them. You're doing this because you feel a calling that's bigger than yourself.
You're doing this for a God who doesn't need this from you. Because whatever a God wants, the God can just self-provide, right? Why why does a God need this person to do anything?
Persecution is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. When you're called by God, you'll have the strength to face whatever comes your way. You'll have the courage to stand by your beliefs, even when others don't agree with you. In fact, if in your calling you don't face persecution, you should really be concerned. Because everyone called by God will experience some level of persecution. Sign number 7, divine dreams and visions.
Uh-oh, Al Trucker. Talking to you here.
God can tell you through dreams and visions that he has called you.
This reminds me of Wesley. Weston, what was his name? Ozian just sent me actually. Ozian sent me a link to Wesley's. Wesley Lawrence Curry II. Um, one of the first guys on my channel to call me, and yeah, he had strange tales of visions and very vivid imagery from things that he imagined in his sleep. Again, how do we know where this is coming from? Is it just the product of the brain? So, like when I dream and I don't know, I'm dreaming of my house burning down. Is that coming from God? If I dream about Armageddon, is that coming from God? If I'm dreaming about having sex with a beautiful person, is that coming from God? I don't know. I wonder.
For instance, you might dream and see yourself preaching to a large crowd or leading a crowd in praise and worship. This is an indication that God is calling you into service.
It's an indication, not evidence, right? So, like, if you're seeing this very vague set of things occur, this is an indication that God is calling you. But what if it's not an indication that God is calling you? How would you determine the two things
You
apart?
might also find yourself regularly having dreams of men of God preaching to you. This means the Spirit of God is ministering to you.
So when you go to church and men are preaching to you all the time, and you go home and you dream about it, we've seen this happen. It was what it's called, what the Tetris effect? Is that it? Where you play Tetris so much that you go out into the world and you start seeing things in terms of Tetris blocks. You start seeing the world constructed with the components from the video game you just played a ton of. And you can also do that when you go to sleep. Like there's been times in my 20s and 30s, I played so much World of Warcraft that when I went to sleep, I was dreaming World of Warcraft. That's because my brain is just on it. Like it's just you just fed so much of that into your head that your brain's going to just mull it over as you sleep at night. Doesn't mean there's a World of Warcraft god making me play World of Warcraft in my brain as I sleep.
Or you might even dream of seeing angelic visitations, or you find yourself performing miracles in the dream.
You find yourself performing miracles in a dream. I flew once in a dream of mine. And I think in another dream I punched something so hard I like broke it in half. It was like a brick wall or something. Uh that God granted me powers in my dream. Be much more impressive if you did that in real life.
All these are indications God has chosen you. Number 8, hatred for injustice. When God calls you, this will cause you to have a hatred for injustice and unrighteousness. When you
So feels like kind of a rehash of point one with the compassion and empathy. Like we're social creatures. We want justice because we understand that in a just world, we are safer, we are more secure. We can feel that, hey, even though something bad happened, uh, a price was paid for it, because that price usually comes from the perpetrator, and that will teach lessons and set examples to keep those things from happening again. If we had a world like the Christian one where you can literally do anything you want as long as you're saved, you're saved. So if I feel like I'm one of the elect or I'm saved, I can go out, I can do whatever I want. I can steal, I can rob, I can kill. Uh, I can maybe get put in prison. I might get caught and put into prison, but hey, it doesn't matter in the long run. I'm not going to pay the price for any of this. Like, yeah,
You have such a strong conviction, you will feel compelled to stand against evil. In many cases, God will want you to advocate on behalf of others who cannot do so themselves. This will involve standing up for the voiceless or speaking out against oppressive people. You
yeah. The funny thing is, like, we do speak out, like atheists in the atheist community, we do speak out against oppressive people, many of which are Christians and Christian organizations. The Catholic Church, with its decades long CSA, uh, cases where the church murdered indigenous children up in Canada and buried their bodies in mass graves. Those are oppressive actions led by oppressive people, and we're speaking out against it. So if both sides can do it, how is that evidence that God's calling you?
will be moved by a desire to protect and defend those who cannot fight for themselves. You will even be willing to take risks in order to champion the cause of righteousness and speak out against unrighteousness. Sign number 9. You will be God conscious. One of the key ways you will
You will be God conscious.
know that God has called you is that you will become very God conscious. You will have a constant sense of God's presence around you, and in everything you do, you will constantly keep thinking of God's opinion about it.
There's other people who feel a constant sense and presence that they're being observed. They're called the paranoid.
This means that you will no longer do things independently as you used to do before. It means that you will be constantly aware of God's presence around your life and will always seek to
Feels very
align your thoughts
repetitive,
and
like AI
actions with His
generated.
will. When you will be less concerned about your own desires and wants and more focused on serving the greater good and doing what is right in God's eyes, you will weigh your options more carefully and consider how each choice aligns with God's plan for your life. You will also find that your relationships with others are impacted in a positive way. As
What? You're pushing people away, but they're being repulsed by your holiness. But God's drawing them in closer to you. And people, what? Now we just flip flop back to the original. What the fuck? Like, did they didn't proofread this. This was likely generated or harvested. Actually, I'm wondering with the H bomber guy, James Somerton, whole thing where plagiarism is actually fairly rampant on YouTube, apparently. I'm wondering if maybe these points, these tidbits were all pulled from other sources and just thrown together into a quick video to get fucking 750,000 views. How does this even work? Like, I can't imagine as a Christian walking away from this feeling good. It's just reaffirmment. I mean, okay, as a Christian, I can maybe imagine walk away feeling good about this, but I would feel like is like something like somehow empty and hollow. Like this is there's no meat to any of this. They peppered in some scriptures, made a bunch of claims, a few of which were wildly contradictory, and people walk away from this feeling better. I don't know. Anywho, that was terrible. I'm so sorry for putting us all through that. I need to vet these videos better. So that was the only video I had lined up for tonight. Let's go some dumpster diving. We did the Let's Build a Playlist video about a week and a half ago. Um, Feel free to throw in chat some Christian apologetics channels that I may not have added from that stream or since. And maybe we'll pop over there. We'll take a look. If it looks like a gold mine for content, I'll go ahead and subscribe. And maybe we'll take a look at a short or two. And we'll do that for maybe about another 30 minutes, and I'll open up the room. If there's any theists or believers in the live stream, feel free to call in. Let's have a discussion. I like to run some street epistemology. I'll be friendly. I don't bite. I try to treat everybody with respect as long as they're taking the conversation seriously. Yeah, feel free to call in. Use the StreamYard link in the chat. Call the phone number. We'll get you in here and we'll have a conversation. Yes, the link is pinned. All right, so let's take a look here. I'm gonna make these smaller. Is that Ben Shapiro? Oh my God. Let's see what he has to say. It's gonna be political though. I'm trying to keep things not political, but let's make an exception here. Things are looking rough for Republicans. Actually, I don't really care about that. Never mind. Let's go someplace else. Let's take a look here. What do you mean? Russell Brand seeking Jesus after controversy. I just heard about this. I heard Russell Brand is trying out Christianity. Like, why would you try out something? Why wouldn't you either be convinced that it's true or not and decide from there whether to join a religion? Why try it out? This is why I call Christianity flavors. Like, it's as if you go into Baskin Robbins and you're saying, "Oh, I want to try a sample of that one. I want to try a sample of that one. Oh, I like the taste of this one. I'm going to go with this one." There's no, I'm not saying all Christians are like this, but many Christians don't think about things. They're going off a gut instinct. They're not using reasoning and logic in their brains to determine what's true or what's not. They're saying, this feels good, as if your feeling has any bearing on what's actually true or not. But it is Russell Brand, so I don't think that'd be a very fun conversation either. I hear he's kind of a douchebag in real life. Catholic Answers. Jesus quoted the apocryphal books. 2 minutes. Let's see what this. The 7 apocryphal books. Let's take a look at that. 7 apocryphal books. I know there are books that didn't make it into the Bible. I didn't know there was like a grouping of 7 of them. The Apocrypha. Okay, I've heard the Apocrypha before. The 7 books are Tobit, Judith, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, and Baruch. Deuterocanonical books. Okay, so the apocryphals are not New Testament books, they're Old Testament books? Or is this a completely different topic here? Okay, yeah, Tobit, Judith, additions to Esther. So Esther got amended? I didn't know that. 1st Maccabees, 2nd Maccabees. Yeah, okay, so these are then additions to Daniel. Somebody came by later on and said, we need to fill in some blanks. What did that statue in Daniel actually mean? Okay, from the Greek meaning belonging to the 2nd canon are books and passages considered by the Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, and the Oriental Orthodox Churches, and or the Assyrian Church of the East to be canonical books of the Old Testament, but which Jews and Protestants regard as apocrypha. They date from 300 to 100 AD. Wow, so these are like really, really latecomers to the game. I mean, 100 AD. I mean, that's New Testament territory right there. So basically, a little bit of an overlap in, depending on your denomination you're in, New Testament, Old Testament writings. While the New Testament never directly quotes from the name from or names these books, the apostles quoted the Septuagint, which includes them. So the apostles quoted something that quoted them, or that has them included. The Septuagint has these books inside of it, and the apostles quoted from the Septuagint, but not necessarily the parts that were those books. Okay. Some say there is a correspondence of thought, and others see texts from these books as being paraphrased, referred, or alluded to many times in the New Testament, depending in large measure on what is counted as a reference. Okay. Quick crash course in the Deuterocanonical books. And let's go take a look at what they have to say about it.
There are 7 books, plus parts of 2 others, that are in the Protestant community often called Apocrypha. Catholics don't use that term, it means hidden, and there's nothing about these books that was ever hidden. They
Well, except that they are in the Bible, and many believers have never heard of them. You can kind of say they're hidden in that way. And if they were really so important, why aren't they in the Bible? Could it be that these books are not entirely true? If those books are not entirely true, then could perhaps the books of the Bible not entirely be true? Slippery slope there.
were part of standard Greek translations of the Bible from before the time of Jesus. So we use a different term for them. We commonly call them deuterocanonicals, and they are connected to the New Testament. There are various places in the New Testament that refer to these books. For example, in
This dude has a pop vinyl of himself. Sorry, getting really distracted here. If you look in the background here, he has a pop vinyl of himself. Where do I get one of those? He actually has several portraits of himself back there, and he has a bunch of pipes. It's a man of taste.
in Hebrews chapter 11, it's giving a list of famous heroes of the Old Testament, and it mentions how some of the Old Testament heroes were martyred, even though they could have gotten released, but they didn't want to get released. They were willing to be martyred because they were hoping for a better resurrection. And
Okay, so how do we know anything about the martyrdom of these people and that they were hoping for better resurrection? Let's go back and listen to that one more time.
commonly call them deuterocanonicals, and they are connected to the New Testament.
They are connected to the New Testament in that the New Testament references them.
There are various places in the New Testament that refer to these books.
Okay.
For example, in Hebrews chapter 11, it's giving a list of famous heroes of the Old Testament, and it mentions how some of the Old Testament heroes were martyred, even though they could have gotten released. But
Okay, so this is like martyrdom accounts in these other books. That would be very convenient for the Christian case that the resurrection actually occurred because martyrdom is kind of one of the arguments around it. Like, oh, these believers wouldn't have faced martyrdom or wouldn't have accepted martyrdom if it wasn't for the truthness of the claims of the resurrection. That would be certainly convenient to have in your ammo box when you're arguing for the resurrection. I wonder why these books aren't in the Bible if that's the case, though.
they didn't want to get released. They were willing to be martyred because they were hoping for a better resurrection.
Let's just say that I haven't read the Apocryphas, so let's just say the Apocryphas support all this.
And that's a reference to something that happens in the book of Second Maccabees, which is one of these seven.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. So he was saying that Hebrews was talking about this? So tales of martyrdom and referring back to the Maccabees?
Books. You will not find people being martyred in order to obtain a better resurrection anywhere else in the Old Testament, but you will find it in Second Maccabees. Bible scholars of all persuasions, including Protestant Bible scholars, acknowledge these connections. They'll acknowledge that one, for example. They'll also acknowledge that in the early chapters of Romans, Paul is drawing on the deuterocanonical book of wisdom for some of the ideas that he expresses.
Okay, so Hebrews and in the Pauline letters. So, yeah.
And Jesus himself in the Lord's Prayer in Matthew 6 follows up the Lord's Prayer by giving a little commentary, because one of the clauses of the Lord's Prayer is forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Jesus follows that up by saying, for if you do not forgive others their debts, neither will your heavenly Father forgive your debts. That's something that is expressed exactly once in the Old Testament, and it's in Sirach 28. It's in another of the deuterocanonical books.
So Jesus was quoting these books. Why aren't these in the Bible if these are so valuable?
So we do find connections between deuterocanonical books and the New Testament. In terms of were they accepted by Jews, they were accepted by some Jews, not by all Jews. It varied from one Jewish community to another, but they were accepted by the Christian community.
Okay. So I don't know, like if these books are if these are referenced by the Bible, there's got to be some truth in them, right? Because if you're taking this from the standpoint of a Christian, the Bible's true, and if the Bible's referencing something as historical or as a source of moral or a source of doctrine, influence or inspiration, or even like in informing a doctrine, then these books must contain some truth, right? So why aren't these included in the Bible? Because there was like a process that went into kind of rubber stamping the Bible when forgot exactly when it occurred, but essentially the Bible wasn't necessarily put together by committee. It was just kind of organically like compiled over time and then later rubber stamped. And I think there was like a couple of additions and a couple of subtractions from like the canon of the Bible. But these apocryphal books never made it into the Bible, but yet they're still referenced by the Bible. So either God said, hey, I'm going to inspire these other books and have the Bible reference them for whatever reason and not include those books in the Bible, or these books just there was problems with them. The people didn't accept them as true. The people didn't think that they were necessary, even though they were referenced by other books in the Bible, and they were just simply dropped. And they just simply didn't make the cut over, however many years that it took for the Bible to circulate and kind of organically grow together into a cohesive unit. Yeah, it's probably good. It's probably a really good area of study to get into because New Testament study is kind of what is kind of drawing my interest, especially after watching a whole lot of like Apologia, listening to Bart Ehrman, learning more about the history of the books, kind of how they got put together, um, the especially the New Testament or the Gospels rather, especially all that how they were put together and all the questions around them. And I think if you study these things and you accept the scholarly consensus on a lot of the problems with these books, it shatters your faith in that this is some type of divinely given book from God. Anyway, let's catch up on some chats. Jimmy, good to see you. I think I saw Forrest Cause ask me a question. There we go. Oh no, he doesn't know what he speaks of. These books are not mentioned in the canon. Well, I don't think he was saying that the books themselves were mentioned in the canon. Passages from the Gospels, passages from the New Testament had references to these books, like paraphrases and maybe even direct quotes. So obviously, I mean, the books aren't mentioned. Jesus isn't saying, as it says in Maccabees or as it says in the Book of Wisdom, but the quote that Jesus gave, I think one of his examples, the quote that Jesus gave at the end of one of his speeches is found in one of those ancient books. But I saw you ask me a question. Why don't you call in? No pressure, but feel free to call in. You can ask me all the questions you want about being a Jehovah's Witness. How long was I in for? I was in from birth all the way to 26-ish. I wasn't completely out till I was 27. My pop vinyl looks so vanilla and plain though. Like I'm just a white dude. Like it's not going to be a lot of personality to it. Probably a waste of money. Yeah, thanks, Prag. That's my. Oh, I have a Reddit user. Oh, I totally forgot about that. I created that like a year ago, and then I just utterly forgot about it immediately. Uh, Council of Nicaea. I've heard about that. I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't have very solid knowledge of exactly that process. Like the Council of Nicaea, how involved was Constantine? Um, from what I've heard from other people say that the Bible, for the most part, congealed organically together. There was some decisions on books to add or books to remove. I think Revelation was like a last minute addition because some guy really had a hard on for Revelation. And then the whole thing was just kind of rubber stamped. And then they said, this is the Bible. And the Bible was born. Yeah, 26 years of my life. I'm 42 now. But yeah, 26 years. So it's actually it's interesting because when I left, it definitely most of my life was consumed by that organization. But now I've been out for 15 years. In another 11, I'll look back and say, oh, over half my life now has been a non-believer. So now I'll kind of be like flipping the theme of my life. Well, if I flip from believer to unbeliever. Tales from the Cults. Where you out of? Jehovah's Witnesses. I was in the Jehovah's Witness cult for most of my life. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's continue on then. Let's click one more video, then I'll open up the room. We'll hang out a little bit. Probably call it good for the night. I don't want to make these too long. Last couple are like 3 hours long, and I want to aim for 2 hours per stream. But if things get really swinging, can really spend more time on this. And I got to share my screen again because I closed the tab. Okay, let's go back here. Oh, and Zadanza's streaming. What are you people doing here? Zod's streaming right now. We should maybe go over there. Also, Margarita's streaming. Actually, why am I here? No, this is wrong account. Hold on. I need to switch back over to Bible Bunk. I hear my poor corgi outside whining. Okay, there we go. All right, back to Bible Bunk. Let's look at maybe some Mike Winger.
Why is it Jesus?
I'm so sorry. Let's go to Mike Winger. I feel a need for just ice picks my ears. Christianity debunked in less than 1 minute debunked. Oh, so we're debunking the debunking. Let's go in here and debunk this. So it's going to be a debunk of a debunk of a debunk. Brandolini's law, though, says we're not going to be able to do this in a minute, though. Brandolini's law will say it's going to take an order of magnitude more time. All right, so let's listen to this. So is this guy an atheist? I don't know. So this is Christianity debunked in less than 1 minute debunked. So I'm guessing it's Mike Winger responding to this gentleman. So we'll see what happens here.
To debunk Christianity in less than a minute.
Good luck with that.
You're wasting
Jesus
your time, Mike.
teaches in the Gospel of John that the only true God is the Father. If the only true God is the Father, then Jesus cannot be God. Therefore, Jesus debunks Christianity in less than a minute.
This happens a lot, especially in the
Okay, so I'm gonna put this open up in video player so we
I'm
can
here now to
rewind
debunk,
it and do all that stuff. All right, so he pointed to a scripture in John that said Jesus said God is God, therefore Jesus can't be God. I don't think this guy understands that Christians can just throw out the law of non-contradiction whenever they want, and also the law of identity because it suits them. Christians, when it comes to the Trinity, the Christians will say that the Trinity is a mystery. It is beyond us. You don't have to understand it; you just have to accept it. It defies logic. But then a lot of them will turn to say also like, oh, the idea that can God create a rock that he himself cannot lift is an absurd question because they understand the absurdity of the contradiction baked into the question, except when it comes to the Trinity. The typical Trinity, Trinity flux capacitor diagrams, Trinity diagram right here. I call this the flux capacitor because it's shaped like one. But we can see that there's contradictions baked right into this diagram. The Son is not the Father, but the Son is God and God is the Father. But that doesn't what's the mathematical property? Transitive. You can't go from Son to God to Father, even though is just an equal sign. The Son equals God, God equals the Father, but the Father does not equal the Son. This is absurd contradictions baked into the transitive property. I got it right. Yay. I'd learned stuff in school. I did stuff there, most of which I don't remember. But this guy's trying to bring logic to the table to combat the Trinity, whereas the Trinity itself is a rejection of logic. You can't fight fire when you can't bring fire to you can't bring fire to this fight when they say, haha, I'm immune to fire. It's a game. Anyway, let's go back and see. Oh, I accidentally closed it. Go back and do this one more time. But anyway, they're basically the same thing with presuppositional apologetics. Certain rules don't apply to us. Circular reasoning's not fallacious because it's virtuous. With the Trinity, having a contradiction in our beliefs Not a big deal because it's a mystery. God can do whatever he wants. God can suspend the laws of logic when he needs to. So bringing this kind of like technicality into it, especially going into John, like John 1:1 specifically says, in the beginning, the word was with God, and the word was a God. The thesis of John is that Jesus is God, at least from my interpretation that I've read into it, which is interesting because the witnesses actually modified that scripture to remove the indefinite article a out of there, or they added indefinite article a in there. So the reading is, in the beginning the word was, and the word was with God, and the word was a God, instead of just the word was God. Anyway, we keep on going into this. So let's review this one more time.
Jesus teaches in the Gospel of John that the only true God is the Father.
The only true God is the Father. But according to Trinitarian belief, Jesus is not the Father, but Jesus is God and God is the Father. So there you go.
If the only true God is the Father, then Jesus cannot be God. Therefore, Jesus debunks Christianity in less than a minute.
Okay, so appealing to a scripture and pointing out a contradiction, you're not going to have any effect on Christians doing this. And we're going to see Mike Winger just brush us off with probably some type of dismissal of the laws of logic when it comes to God.
This happens a lot, especially in the online world, where critics of the Trinity don't understand the doctrine
Mike, buddy, why are you wearing a hat indoors? You're inside, man.
of the Trinity. Jesus does in fact say this, at least say that the Father is the only true God. But what does this prove? This proves that Jesus is not a different God than the Father. This is the nature of the doctrine of the Trinity that many people don't understand. We're not saying Jesus is a separate God, but
Oh, he has got the diagram here. Okay. Is he bringing this diagram as a support or as a saying this doesn't represent us?
Jesus is the only God. We're saying that there's one God in three persons, not that there are three gods.
That changes everything. One person is three people, of course.
So I'd like to thank Hamzas Den for pointing out why Jesus is not a different God, but is in fact the only true God.
That Mike, you really needed more than a minute there because you didn't prove anything. You didn't debunk anything. So Mike literally says one person is three people and three people is one person. You're violating the law of identity there, and also non-contradiction. Three people is not one person. One person is not three people, but you're saying that they are. You're saying that one is not one. You're violating non-contradiction there. By asserting it, you aren't getting anywhere. You aren't saying anything that demonstrates that this guy is incorrect. This guy may be correct in his interpretation of the scripture. This maybe have been the original intent of this writing, but just swooping in and saying, "Oh, one is also three, and three is also one," or rather saying one is not one and three is not three. Nonsense. It's utter nonsense. Anyway, it was 1 minute. Pretty mercifully short. Let's just go ahead and open up the room. My brain's
I'm
running.
here now.
My brain's still running on empty because of Powell World. Feel free to pop in. Any Christians that want to come in and say hi, I'll give you priority. Or anybody else that wants to come in and hang out and say hi, feel free. That's for Tell Me More. Tell Me More has a YouTube channel. Isn't the email on the about page of the YouTube channel? I don't know. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get in the middle of that. Oh, I don't think so. I got hair recession going. Like, it's going 42. What actually really gets me is that so I'm getting like some gray going in through here. So when I cut my hair, it actually looks like I like chopped it here and I didn't like do a let me see, make it bigger for you. Let's talk about receding hairlines. Like the hair is there. It's just gray. Every time I cut my hair, my wife's like, "You got to dye your hair." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to dye my hair. I really, really, really do not want to do that." Okay. Yeah. Link is pinned. Who's this old man? I'm sorry, Tim Bob. I'm sorry. I can't stay young forever. All right. Well, I'm going to pop open another video while I wait for folks to join. Let's keep on going, I guess. Present, share screen. Did I share my screen? What happened there? Share screen, YouTube. Oh, I hit cancel because I'm dumb. Okay. Well, let's keep on going here then. Oh God, that. Not getting into politics, but just talking about Giuliani as a character. I don't know. Is his mind just being kind of ravaged by old age? Because just some of the shenanigans we've seen him go through in like the last 4 years, like the press conference in front of the Four Seasons, but it wasn't the Four Seasons. It was a you know, it was an industrial area town. It was like a shop in front of an industrial area in town. I don't say that's on Giuliani. Obviously, I think maybe just a staffer just goofed up and just called up the wrong phone number in the phone book, or that's aging me, on the internet, and just getting the wrong phone number. And it happens, whatever. But just kind of just rolling into it, pretending like nothing's wrong, like not even an explanation, like saying, "Hey, we made a mistake. We're just going to roll with it because we find it humorous and we need to, talk to you about something." Or just the leaking hair dye. I don't know. It's just kind of it's just kind of like it's almost like it's comedy. It's really just comedy. Like, you can't write this kind of stuff. This is stuff that just happens naturally or organically. And when you have such absurdly absurd people like Giuliani, like Trump, like the people in Trump's orbit, you're going to get just this clown show. It's a free comedy show every day. It's really, really, really funny in some cases. If it wasn't so horrifying in other cases. Anyway, tell me more's here. Save us. Tell me more.
Yo.
Save us from Christian apologetics and me, and just yeah.
Oh man, should we talk about video games again? Because
we could go back to Jimmy was like, yeah, you should play Power World on your stream, and just I can't though. Like, I can't do what Owen Morgan does. Like, Owen plays Legend of Zelda while he's just tearing into politics like every morning, and
yeah.
I can't do that. My brain can't do both of those things. Although
like, I saw you playing Power World, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna end up having to get that. But like, I've been wanting to play the new God of War games.
Yep.
And one of my friends just got it for me, like the first of the new one. I guess it would be God of War 4.
It's colloquially called God of War 4, even though officially it's just God of War.
And it's technically the 5th God of War game because of the prequel one,
Chains of Olympus. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I played both of those games, God of War 4 and also God of War Ragnarok, which is God of War 5. And
I want to get that one next. I'm waiting for it to hit PC.
Yeah. Amazing games. Because I was never into God of War 1 through 3 because I thought it was like just a stupid hack slash blood kill type guy game,
it kind of was.
Yeah, which is
it
fine.
Was like mindlessly fun.
Yeah, if that's your cup of tea, no problem. But it wasn't mine. But the idea of God of War 4, where they take that character who is just a mindless killer.
Oh my God, man! And that's exactly why I wanted it.
Yeah,
not only that, because the whole thing was like a dynamic with him and his son, like making a relationship, and it came out a little bit before I had my son, and I didn't have any interest in it until I had a son, and then I was like, what? And now I was like, now I see why people find the dynamic touching, because like so far it's been pretty good, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I don't want to lose Earl, so we'll keep this conversation short. But the whole idea is what happens just from a story standpoint. Just remove the video game part of it. Earl, pretend we're talking about a movie or book series.
Hey, there you go. It is very cinematic, though.
It is extremely cinematic, but just this character arc of, hey, let's take this one-dimensional super kill guy character from these original games. Let's advance. He's a god, so let's say centuries go by, and now he's feeling guilty about what he did. That's a good story. How do you start contending with that? Hey, I'm a god. I'm old. I've killed so many innocent people, along with my enemies, but I've also killed, indiscriminately people that just got in my way. what happens when all of a sudden that individual grows a conscience? And yeah, I think that's kind of where the real like meat of that story comes from, because not only does
Yeah.
he feel guilty for what he did, but he also has a son that he wants to raise to be better than him.
Yeah.
And just that's the whole motivation for his character arc, and it is a beautifully written, developed character arc in both of the new games.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, yeah, I play both of those, and I'm going to be probably going back to Pal World here fairly soon. But yeah, how you doing? What do you got going on your channel, and anything new? Like,
well, I just edited today part 10 of my Flood series, and that'll release on Wednesday. But tomorrow at 2 p.m. my time, which I think is 4 p.m. or no, that'd be noon Pacific, right?
What time zone are you in?
I'm in Central.
Okay, so -2.
Yeah, okay. I'll be chatting with Professor Dave.
Oh wow, Professor Dave.
Yeah, so that's gonna be fun.
What's the topic on?
Well, I'm mostly interested in like how he came to like his interest in chemistry, and how he like found himself teaching, and how he liked it, and how it changed his like career trajectory, and then I want to touch on his debunks, how he goes about selecting them, what his thought process is, and like how he goes about talking about them. And then like finally I want to touch on like what his favorite ones have been, what he's still looking into doing, and stuff like that.
Very cool. And so you said tomorrow, it's gonna be tomorrow at, you said noon my time, Pacific Standard Time?
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I hope that stream goes well for you. Yeah, I've never talked to Professor Dave before. I would probably, if I had him on my show, I'd probably talk to him about how he finds the energy to just go into and just tackle pseudoscience. Because I've been watching over on Matters Now, Ozian, he tackles a lot of like flat earther stuff. And I'm like, I look at that and I get just so fatigued, because I'm like, it's obviously the science is completely obvious, and you can see the very you see the obvious flaws in flat earther thinking, but finding the energy and the way to convey that to a flat earther in a way that doesn't shut down the conversation, doesn't insult them, that they can get across to them. It's like just my eyes glaze over when I think about that, because it sounds so impossible and tiring. Because
I don't think that that's something that anybody should be considering. Like, how am I going to convert this guy? Because frankly, I do not believe that flat earthers actually, factually, in reality, believe that the Earth is a flat plane or disc. I do not believe that they actually do.
I really think some of them do.
And that's where they want you. That's where they want. I think that's exactly where they want us, is to be outraged that they think that.
Yeah.
Because like the whole thing is like an absolute torrential downpour of conspiracy caked on top of conspiracy caked on top of conspiracy. Like you have to believe in so many batshit crazy conspiracies to be into flat Earth.
Didn't flat Earth start off as a joke?
I think it did.
And then it just kind of became a monster that nobody could control. I think you ever gone to Reddit? Birds Aren't Real. There's a subreddit called Birds Aren't Real.
I've seen bits and pieces. I try to stay away from Reddit for like more than like troubleshooting help, because like it seems like it could really grab a hold of you and pull you down. Like beat you down to its level.
Oh my god, there's an actual birdsaren'treal.com now. Let's go to Reddit.
Oh no.
So this is kind of something that I think is also kind of going, I don't think it'll go as crazy far as Flat Earth did. But
it was like their government drones or something, right?
Yeah. So basically, this started off as a joke website, but basically, the idea is birds aren't real. Birds are actually government drones built to spy on us. So let's see here. Yeah, so like just like here's a meme like, oh, we're afraid of Alexa gathering information on us. No, we really got to be careful of parakeets because they're the ones really gathering the information on us.
You better watch out for that budgie you got.
Yeah. And anyway, so this is kind of a thing, but I've heard some rumors that some people are actually taking this very seriously, and that's the thing. Like,
I think they are.
Like, are the early adopters trolls? Like, are these people who are just saying, "Hey, I just want to see how many people I can frustrate, or I want to see how much time I can waste. I want to see how much resources I can waste." And they start these things. I think that might be the first step of any like movement like this. When somebody's saying, "No, this is real," they could be the troll, and then underneath them are the true believers that will kind of creep in as things go along.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like the whoever's like forerunners or for the people on the forefront of the flat earth debate in favor of the flat earth, it could be very well they are just trolls and they just believe and they just simply like to have the following, or maybe it's just gotten out of control. Like all of a sudden they have people who really believe in them and they like that. So it could be like the higher echelons are not believers, but is that maybe how religions start? If you really think about it, it's just something that gets out of control. I don't know.
Yeah, like, and I don't know, because like, I feel like when you start off, like, it could be like there was a comedian, I forget who it was. He said something like, whenever you got one of those crazy conspiracy friends who starts talking about a conspiracy around you, you just gotta, like, the best way to shut him up is to one up his conspiracies.
Yeah.
Like if he's talking about, oh, you think we went to the moon? Da, 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 you hit him with, oh, you're one of those people. You believe the moon is real?
Just fight bullshit with bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, because like it seems like if you do that to somebody who's like heavily conspiracy minded, they might actually jump on that and be like, oh man, yeah, tell me more about that. And then like now you've got a problem.
Because there's a bunch of hey Monkey, how you doing? Welcome.
Hey Joe.
Yeah. There's a whole like dynamic behind it where it comes down to, you know, wanting to feel special, like you have the answers, you're the main character in a story, and you unearth a conspiracy. You have people following you, people looking up to you, people asking you for advice, your importance rises. I can see a whole swirl of kind of psychological influences that might drive these types of things forward and kind of turn them into the monsters that they become. It would be interesting to see in, like, you know, 5 to 10 years, like the birds aren't real movement. Like, is it still just a subreddit, or is it actually a real thing?
Like Guy Killed Earl is saying, Vice did a documentary on the guy who started this. And he is absolutely, like, he's come out and said, like, no, I did this as a joke.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Like what's his name did with Flat Earth. It was one of the it was one of those YouTube brothers that like started doing boxing. I
know who you're talking about.
YouTube brothers who started doing boxing. There's more than one of them.
Yeah, Logan and Jake Paul. That was it.
Oh,
it was one of those two. They did like this whole thing where they were trolling a flat earth priest, and they were like, yeah, I'm a flat earther, you know, and they were so desperate for like celebrity presence that they even said at one of their big conferences, we have a celebrity to endorse, and they're like, we want to introduce, and it's like Jake or Logan, and he comes out and he said, oh yeah, we're doing a documentary. And then like the whole documentary, he's like semi-obviously trolling the flat earthers, but then gets down to the very end of it and his buddy's interviewing him. He's like, so do you believe the earth is flat? And he goes, no, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
But then people are gonna hear that and go, oh, that was a joke, or oh, he's trying to throw off the people trying to debunk this. Oh, this was a lie for a grander purpose, so we can just ignore that. We know the real answer is he actually believes, but he said no because of very important reasons. Yeah, there's like all kinds of rationalizations that can occur here. Like it's like inescapable. It's like if somebody wants to believe something, they're going to believe something.
You know, and that does like summarize a lot of like Christian faith, because there was several things that even as a believer, I was like, I don't know why I believe this, I just do, because like it was, I don't know, something wouldn't make quite make sense to me, but I would accept it anyway because I'm just like, God made it this way or God did it this way. So I don't have to understand it. I just have to accept it.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, like conspiracy theories never travel alone. Like
Nope.
nobody's got a conspiracy like because my dad's really big into this, and he's like, my dad's not from this country, but he got like a copy of Loose Change back in like the early 2000s in his own language. Like, dude has no idea who Alex Jones is, who was like instrumental in getting that thing pushed.
Lucky.
But like but like it's not just the 9/11 stuff, and he's like the level 5 9/11 truther. He's like the kind that thinks that they're like little commando guys in the buildings and that the planes weren't real, and that's a whole nonsense thing.
Well, the planes weren't real. They were.
They did a good job faking them on live TV.
They were really large birds.
Yeah, no, they were just it was actually just a tightly packed like formation of pigeons. They were just flying really, really tight synchronous formation. They can do it with the robotics. It's magnificent.
You mean government drones?
Yeah.
Yeah, government drones. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
government drones, same thing. I mean, synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but bring that back to flat Earth. I think I've asked more than once to flat earthers, what's your falsification criteria for flat Earth theory? Like I asked Witsit this when he was on. I asked it through a super chat when he was over on Matters Now. I asked, I was like, hey, what's your falsification criterion? I asked, do you think flat Earth is scientific? And if yes, what's your falsification criterion for it? And he gave me a very unsatisfactory answer. He basically said, yeah, it's scientific.
Shocker.
And the falsification criterion for it is basically whatever will falsify it. That's essentially what he said. Like whatever would prove it wrong is my falsification criterion. But it's like, no, you can't just say that. Falsification criterion is very specific. It's if we see this, then we know this. For example, with like evolution, the theory of evolution, really good falsification criterion for evolution is finding a mammal fossil in Precambrian rock.
All right.
According to theory of evolution, we should not have those complex organisms down there. If we find,
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I predict, for example, that we're gonna find like a fishapod, in this very specific layer, and then holy crap, we do. Like that's a really good confirmation there.
That's great confirmation. But like with falsification, because confirmation can be here's a thing too, like with people who have like serious scientific ideas who are treating it in a serious manner, they will seek out to prove themselves wrong, not to prove themselves right. So it usually comes down to I have an experiment or I have a hypothesis. If this is false, how would I know it? And that's what they seek. I'm not saying confirmation is worthless. As obviously we want to see confirmation for our theories and our ideas, but the first order of business is to prove it wrong.
Well, and I mean, part of the reason I was bringing that up was more that like they do this thing where like they think they can shoot down like one fact at a time. And if they can do that every time they you throw a fact up like a clay pigeon, if they can keep, shooting them down, then they've got a theory. Yeah. And it's like, no, like you don't understand. Like for this to be true, like literally everything else, like the madness must never cease. Because like everything else that we know about the world would have to be wrong. Like you have to delve into such like that Witsit guy. I've seen a couple of his, just a little bit of him, and that guy just he's like offensively like insane. Like I don't know what the correct description for that is.
I think you hit it.
Offensively insane. But just cap off my point that I was making earlier. So like when I asked him, hey, what's the falsification criterion for flat Earth? And he didn't give me one. He just basically said whatever proves it wrong is what proves it wrong. That's like saying, hey, like, take an unfalsifiable claim, like there are no gods, period. Like there are no gods at all. You can't falsify that. There's nothing you can say. We do this and this and this, and that's the way we know that we are wrong about that. Actually, no, I take that back. I absolutely had that backwards. A God exists is unfalsifiable because no matter what you do, you can't falsify that type of a positive claim. And just simply saying, well, whatever falsifies it is what will falsify, it doesn't get you anywhere. You're basically at square one. And so I've been looking at like some of the flat Earth like diagrams and models, and I can sit there and I can say, okay, if this diagram is wrong, here's how I would know it. I could look at it and go, I can find better falsification criteria than the actual flat earthers can. Either they don't want to admit what it is because they don't want people actually falsifying their theory, or they themselves don't understand the question, or they themselves refuse to see it. Like flat Earth diagram. I don't even know if there's like an official one. Is there like an official flat Earth diagram?
I've also kind of gone down this rabbit hole a little bit. There's like 2 or 3 that are kind of the most popular.
Yeah.
Like usually it's the ice wall around like a disc. The main point of contention in the community seems to be what the disc is doing.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like flying through space or if space exists and it's, on some kind of fucking pillars or something.
Yeah.
I can't reconcile, because like the most common one I see, of course, is the azimuthal equidistant projection of the globe onto a flat surface, which distorts distances, right? And like to flatten the Earth out on a disk and to say the North Pole is in the center, like the distances do not add up, and there's no way you can make them add up because it's going to get stretched the further out you go. And I don't like they don't have a model, and so they borrow globe models flattened out to make their own model.
And that's kind of what I mean is that like, it's like there's so much stuff that they are borrowing incidentally from like the real world because they can't, it's like trying to convince somebody that the sky is not blue. It's just like, there's so many things that have to be wrong with that, concept that like it's hard to even take them one at a time, Yeah.
There we go. Let's take a look at that. Okay. So let's say this is kind of close to what flat earthers accept. We as non-flat earthers, we can look at falsification criterion for this type of a model here. Like the first one that comes off the top of my head is so the moon, right? The same face of the moon always faces us. No matter where you are on the planet, you see the same exact face of the moon because the moon is tidally locked. In reality, in the real world, the moon is tidally locked with Earth. The same side faces Earth at all times. The shadow that is cast on the moon is relative to its position with the sun and occasionally with the Earth when there's an eclipse. Yeah. So the thing is, though, if the moon is traveling like this, flying around, why don't we see people taking photographs of different sides of the moon as it travels around?
And why doesn't it change shape?
Yeah.
I mean, like doing my best to steelman the argument. Like if you look at it, their moon is still tidally locked with their sun. So the same side would always be visible.
Right.
Like,
but the question is though,
I don't know how you get moon phases out of this.
Yeah. But like here's one falsification criterion I can come up for this, going along with what I just mentioned earlier. If this model is incorrect, we should not see 2 different angles of the moons. Let's say I'm a human over here, and let's say there's a human over here, and they're both looking at the moon. This is nearly a 45 degree. I know this is not to scale. This is nearly a 45 degree angle. The person here is facing this this side of the moon.
Scale.
Yeah. So you would have literally 2 people able to take a picture of the same moon on the same night or day or whatever,
and have different pictures.
You'd have different angles of the face of the moon. It would be 45 degrees rotated.
And it would look different. Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 45 degrees. I'm sorry, 90 degrees. There's a
Yeah.
90 degree
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Because 45 one way, 45 the other.
But again,
Right.
not to scale.
Not to
Like
scale,
that-
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's why I've asked like a few flat earthers, like how far away is the moon relative? How big is the moon? And how far away is it?
That's
relative
another
to the
thing
planet?
they don't really agree on, because obviously, like, there's no sensible way to make the mathematics work.
Yeah, there
Well,
is.
the one I've heard is that the moon and the sun are both 3,000 miles in diameter, and they are the exact same size and they're the exact same height away from the Earth, generally. But like they say that the moon travels faster than the sun, which is why we see it change position, and that the sun kind of does like an up and down, like snaking as it goes around the Earth.
Yeah, I've seen that one too.
Yeah.
It has all kinds
That's
of
the most
weird
common
things.
one.
I mean,
I'm sure there's
For
others.
me,
But
like, my whole thing is like, I've been to Australia and I've got a family
Mhm.
member who literally works in Antarctica. So I'm like right there, like, just because I trust that family member more than I trust, any Yahoo on the internet. Like, and they tell me, and I believe them, that it is not a giant ice wall.
But even with this diagram here, like this diagram's even more to scale. 'Cause, like the moon and sun aren't as big. Yeah, what stops a person from over here?
I mean, yeah, same
Going from
problem.
over here, yeah, there's a 90-degree difference here.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's-
even if
and
there
that's the
wasn't-
thing. Like that's falsification criteria. If it was this and we observe something other than what we expect, that falsifies it. Or rather, it throws a theory into question, and the theory might need revising. In this case, theory cannot be soundly revised because the theory is fundamentally false and flawed. But
can I also point out?
just simple ideas like this is all it takes is just to shoot these things down, but they purposely ignore it. And when you ask them, hey, what would falsify your model? They don't tell you. Go ahead.
Can I just like point out the seemingly universal misunderstanding of the sun and just light in general? Because they seem to think that light can only travel toward the Earth. They don't, I don't know, if the sun is only shining light like in that little bubble area there, then that means that the sun is not 360 degree spherically shining light out in all directions. It's more like a spotlight shining down.
It's the Pixar lamp. It's just
Yeah. And like even if like when you talk to them about like the sun's rays coming in essentially parallel to the Earth, like they misunderstand that one as well, where they seem to think that the light rays coming in from all sections of the Earth or all sections of the sun are coming into the Earth and only to the Earth, like not shining anywhere else out in space.
Right. Well, I mean, part of the thing too that I think, like, I think kind of the fundamental thing, and like to kind of come back, because like, excuse me, the one thing I was gonna, that you said that like kind of I bumped on, tell me more, was that like you were saying that like you don't think that they actually believe this, and like I think there's a distinction to be drawn between whether they actually believe it and whether they care what's actually true.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
theory to reinforce like this kind of deep identitarian, because really at the end of the day it's not about the shape of the Earth, it's about like this grander conspiracy and the battle of good and evil, and
the truth.
it's all a cosmic ballet in
Yeah.
their mind. Like
And I
that's the real story.
Yeah, I think that's probably extremely close to the reality of the situation.
And that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
We are like main characters in a story. We're the heroes. We're fighting the lies that the government are putting out there, and we have like the real truth. And
in a way,
yeah.
I think the more the thing that people like need more than to be the hero in the story is for there to be a story. Like that, like the idea, again, like we were talking about the other week, like the idea that everything is chaos is very frightening to people. And like,
Yeah.
I think that people need to feel like they're part of some kind of narrative, like that they're part of a bigger whole that is working to some purpose,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hope, meaning, and purpose. It's a tremendous driving force when it comes to people's beliefs
Right.
and desires. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I believe that also our minds are relatively powerful things in and of themselves. Like we can convince ourselves of a lie, even though we know it's a lie. Like we can tell ourselves a lie so much that we start to believe it, right? And like then eventually we kind of can't separate that lie from reality, and we just kind of like incorporate it in, and then at some point it becomes our truth. Like we've convinced ourselves of it, and now it doesn't even qualify in your mind as like, oh yeah, I know it's a lie, but I'm going to tell it as the truth anyway.
Hey, Earl, how you doing?
Hi.
Hey.
I was
Flat
surprised.
Earth, I got heated in the chat. It's
Yeah, I was
like,
surprised you want to come over here and talk about this, because you guys do this plenty over on Oz's channel. So it's like more of the same.
Well, when you were showing the sun, like
Mhm.
that infuriates me because it's not a fucking flashlight. Like,
Yeah.
how do they don't
Yeah.
understand how light works? It's like it radiates from all angles. And then I tried to get Witsit and Iron Horse to answer why Orion is right side up in the US and it's upside down in Australia.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Or why there's like a whole
The personal domes
of constellations that you can see in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen the Southern Cross.
Yeah, I have. I can confirm it is in fact there.
Well,
Yeah,
because
I've never seen it.
light refracts because of the atmosphere, right?
Mhm.
Maybe how
Right.
refraction can like solve any problem when it comes to any type of, because
but it only solves the problems when they want it to.
Yeah,
Otherwise
exactly.
it's just like convenience.
But it's that one clay pigeon at a time thing, It's
Yeah.
That's the answer when they need it to be the answer, and then it's like magnetism when they need that to be the answer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sure if I were to present this falsification criterion of the angles of the moon, like what part of the face of the moon you're looking at, depending on where you are, they're going to probably go to light refraction. Like, oh, the atmosphere refracts the light in a way where we are going to see only the same side of the moon no matter where we are.
Right.
Which post hoc
Right.
rationalizations and yeah,
Because that's
And
how
like
is it kind of bends around in this arc so that it goes to each person individually.
Well, the funny thing is, like the light, that's basically saying that, okay, if the moon is like constantly pointed at, if the moon is tidally locked with the flat Earth and it's pointing in the same face of the Earth all the time, that means that somehow we are all looking at the moon at the same exact angle, no matter where we are on the disk. So somehow that light from the moon is going out, going in all different directions, and then coming back down to the ground exactly in the same way, no matter where you are on the entire
And
flat Earth.
They can never justify a eclipse either.
Yeah.
Back and to the left.
There's
Just all the photons
so
are
many-
back.
And I was arguing with a flat earther in chat. I guess it was yesterday or the day before.
oh my
And,
goodness.
Because we were on Matters Now, and I'm a mod, and I get to argue with people.
Oh, I think I was there for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not letting him run away on me. And the only answers that I got were anti-Semitic, conspiracy theories.
Of course.
And a bunch of like, oh, well, this is like, have you never talked to a flat earther before? And I'm like, honestly, I avoid you people like the fucking plague. So no, not really. And I was genuinely asking like, why, like about his reasoning, trying to figure this out. And we were arguing about the moon landing. And of course, a lot of flat earthers do not believe.
Yeah.
And I was like, you realize that there have been more than one, right? And
We've been there more than once.
Right, like 6 5 times, 6 times, 5 missions, I think 6 landings. Anyway, I mean, the other way around. Sorry. And so, he's like, of course not. And so I'm like, okay, well, how about all the unmanned missions by multiple countries all over the world? That's hundreds of thousands of people, and they're all lying. And he was like, well, like he had nothing. And he's like, I told you, like, then he's gaslighting me, saying that he, gave me an explanation. I'm like, you literally told me 0 information. Like, why would all of these people lie?
Well, I mean, the Japanese are the most recent country to land on the moon, and we all know that Japan is a well-known Jewish population. Like it's basically little Yeshivaville up in there. Yeah.
Earl, was that Daryl Frost?
A lot of the countries, like we're not like friendly with each other either. Like they're very protective over their their technology secrets or whatever, and they're not exactly like disclosing a bunch of information to every country, including the US, but they act like NASA is like the only space agency on the planet. It's flat Earth.
They're not the only game in town.
Right. Flat Earth seems to be very American centric, where it's like they don't. I think part of the reason why they don't understand this shit is because they literally have been nowhere else. Like they have no other perspective. Like they've never been to South America. Like,
I mean,
they've never been to South Africa. They've never been to Australia. They've never seen the world on
famously poorly traveled.
The only correction is I don't think it's necessarily America centric so much as it's like Christocentric. And like Christocentric to the Western world.
There's a strong correlation with that, but I mean, from my experience, it really seems to be the people that do not move away from their the town that they were born that seem to be incapable of even visualizing that the sky doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right. No, I mean,
was it
that you're right about that people who haven't experienced like any kind of different just experience other than their own, kind of insular tribe are going to be more vulnerable to that. Sorry, tell me more. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just curious if it was the user Daryl Frost that you were talking with, Earl, because I remember the name coming up.
Yeah, it wasn't him. It was Justin
Johnson. Yeah. I was trying to talk with him too, and they kept like, they were very gaslighty.
And I was like, let me play. I'm like,
yeah,
this guy's feet to the fire.
The one thing I'll give Witsit credit for is he's real good at hiding his power level, as the kids say.
Oh God, Witsit is so vile to me. I cannot stand that man. If I have to hear bro one more fucking time, I'm gonna gouge out my eyeballs with spoons. And nobody, like, he says that in the most condescending, just irritating way. And every single time that he says it, he's basically saying like, you're a dumbass, without actually saying you're a dumbass.
Right.
And so, he's talking with Oz and stuff, and he just keeps saying bro. I was like, do you not realize that every time he says that, he's insulting you? Like,
well, when you don't have evidence and argumentation, you go with rhetoric. You have style, you have like a pizzazz to your speaking.
He's a showman, that's for damn sure.
Back in university, we called individuals like that alpha nerds. It's like they have a very specific esoteric topic that they're just super aggressive about presenting. And if you try to converse with them about it outcome, like you mentioned, the bros, the little jabs, like, why aren't you following? Or, like
it's Star Wars with me.
Do you know what a logical fallacy is? Like,
yes, exactly. And what's it in his fucking fallacies? That during that debate, I mean, I never wanted to hear the word fallacy or bro ever again. It's like, I wanted to put forks in my
Their
ears.
favorite ones are like, "Oh, you're that's an ad hominem. That's ad hominem." Like, dude, you realize I can
Ad
call you an
hominem.
idiot, and it's not an ad hominem, right?
They have no idea
Like,
what it means.
they
You're wrong,
equate
and you're an
insulting
idiot.
them with ad hom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an insult is not an ad hom. That's.
But again, I
They
think
learned a word, so they have to use it.
yeah, and they think that because they learned that thing, like that's like the verbal jujitsu that like overpowers their opponents, But like again, I think it comes back to that they don't they don't care what's true so much as they care what again validates the other stuff, and again it's like you were saying, Earl, it's the anti-Semitic nonsense, like that's really that's the core of what they care about, and everything else is sort of the window dressing, the gateway drug into this world.
Yeah, that's kind of the it's kind of the power of cult think too, because anything that supports you, and anything that doesn't support you or any
It's a lie.
criticism is an attack and a lie and supports you. Like it's when you have a system where literally
They
any
can
word
never be wrong.
given to you is in support of your cause. Yeah, it's very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, it's very difficult to engage with them, and now I have a channel full of them.
Dude, that's why like I'm so hesitant to like make an anti-flat Earth video on my channel, because like me and my editor, we've talked about it so many times. Like I kind of want to do like this super goofy like trolling kind of flat Earth debunk kind of thing. Like at one point, I said something about like I want to look like I'm very poorly been green screened onto the ISS, and then outside the window there's like a flat Earth that kind of glitches back into a globe real quick. Just like some goofy, stupid things, but like at the same time be like actually seriously debunking flat Earth. But like I keep going back and forth on it because I don't want that kind of influx.
Right, and it's hard to not make fun of them. It really is. Believe me,
It can be
And like
difficult.
I said, I've said so many times, I have zero patience for them because I don't think they actually believe it. And I don't know, like I guess I could exercise more of my adulthood patience. I've got kids, so I know how to be patient. But like,
I don't. So this is really my chance to practice because
I think that's probably one of the reasons why too. Like I'm so much softer on religious folks, and especially Christians, because I used to be one of them. I was a genuine believer. I know that they are, for the most part, genuine believers. You want to handle them like with care and caution.
Yeah, I believe that they believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
Just for what purpose? Like why?
Contrast that with a lot of the flat earthers, especially the ones I've seen on like modern day debates and on Matters Now and stuff like that. Like it's like I can't take them seriously because you don't feel like they actually believe, because you don't see how the logic they're presenting could even convince them of what they're saying. Yeah,
I really think that they really. I mean, I really do think that they believe it, and Whitsitt he is not a dummy. I mean, the man is very smart. He reads a lot of very like shit that is way over my head and can spill it out at rapid speed. But I think that he's like the epitome of Dunning-Kruger. Like he knows enough,
Isn't it?
He knows enough to get himself in the weeds, but then misses really crucial elements of the research that he's reading.
I feel like it's almost more like, because it's not even like, it's almost like the Dunning-Kruger thing doesn't even apply here, because he's got such a deep and encyclopedic knowledge of nonsense.
It's not nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a lot of like actual knowledge of like,
but he correlates it nonsensically.
But yeah, and then he's also got this like encyclopedic knowledge of like this nonsensical flat Earth. Like he could also like tell you exactly like how the flat Earth thing works in their, quote model.
It's really not nonsense. I mean, Oz has gone through several papers that Whitsitt has referenced in his debates and elsewhere. And, Oz has spent hours and hours and hours and hours going through this stuff. And it really is that Whitsitt is, like I said, he's brilliant. He's very smart, but he misses a crucial element of these papers that he then takes and twists into this worldview. It's not that it really isn't that he's spouting nonsense. It sounds like a lot of word salad, but it's really because a lot of this stuff is shit that we just don't, like, me as a layman I do not understand what he is saying. He is using big words that actually mean something and in the context mean something, but because he's thinking of it on another plane than the rest of us. But it's not nonsense. It's not word salad. It really is.
I wonder.
See, I think that's what we mean by nonsense. Like, because he says it, and he has a working knowledge of how to phrase it and how to put it all together and how to like talk about it intelligently.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't actually add up to anything to match his worldview, and I think that's why we're calling it nonsensical.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Because you're saying something that means something, sure, but it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Yeah, I wonder if that key component ingredient Earl mentioned earlier that's missing is just self-doubt.
Yes.
Like, can you just imagine? I don't know, because like
does not think he's ever been wrong.
Yeah, I can't diagnose him because I can't diagnose anybody because I'm not a doctor on that. But it does make you think. It's like, what's going on in that mind?
Mm-hmm.
That it's just like, what's the misfire going on there? And it could be that for some of these people, for some of these folks, it's just they just are incapable of doubting their own position.
Is very he's the main character in his world.
Like, have y'all seen
the minute that somebody is not talking to him on the panel, he's in the chat, like going off, doing whatever. Like, he has to be the center of attention at all times. It's
Have y'all seen Professor Dave's thing where he like responds to the Globe Busters?
Oh yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
I've seen all of his.
So you guys know the part where like I think it's Bob that was speaking. Was like I knew you were gonna say that. It's funny how they always go to that. Like that giddy, fun little "I've got you now" kind of like trill to his voice.
I'm 5 moves ahead of you type mentality, or the
like
the air, like, oh, I predicted you would say this.
Like in his very essence, he knows he's got Professor Dave pinned to the mat, and that third count is coming down. Like, he knows it. But like in reality, everybody else is just like, what is he laughing about?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you're interviewing Professor Dave? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna be so fun, I think.
That's a big interview. Professor Dave is very hard to interview.
When I emailed him, like, my thought process, I even turned to my wife, who, like, her computer's right next to mine. I turned to my wife and said, I'm emailing a science tuber who is probably just going to ignore my email. She goes, oh, well, maybe he won't. I was like, I don't know.
Professor
and then, like, I'm not even kidding.
Channels to do interviews for. He's very accessible.
Yeah, it was like 5 hours later, I just kind of like looked at my email, and there was a response from Dave. And like, I put up this whole big old thing about like, hey man, I don't want to seem like I'm shooting for the stars, even though that's kind of what I'm doing. But like, you're a huge inspiration for why I've done my channel, and I went through this like fangirl spiel kind of thing.
Have you listened to his band?
Yes, actually, I follow them on Spotify.
The song Castles is one of my like new obsessions.
Yeah. Castles. I do like the Tannhauser Gate, and the music video is just great as well. But But like I went through that whole spiel, and then like he responds with, "Sure, I'd love to do an interview."
Mhm.
that was like his whole response, and I was just like, "What?"
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is that he's hard. He's not hard to get a hold of, because he is very accessible, and he's a very cool dude, but he is very hard to interview. He's very dry and stiff, and just sort of matter of fact, and very.
And I like that, actually.
Yeah.
Like I like the very
it's hard to get
forward
away
and
with the
conciseness.
drama.
Well, I've noticed
Godless.
if he doesn't feel like your question is like,
Yeah,
kind
he'll
of-
let you know.
yeah, he'll just be like, I have no opinion on that. Next.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very dry. He's just
Godless Granny interviewed T-Jump a couple days ago, and that was kind of an awkward interview because T-Jump's very matter of fact, just blunt, moving on, like not much of a conversationalist.
No.
He'd rather recite knowledge than talk about
Not a
himself.
lot of,
Yep.
Yeah.
It was hard too, because like I had an interview on God's Granny almost a year ago, and it was a really nice, pleasant conversation. It was a back and forth, just just a conversation, like normal humans have. Not saying he's not normal human, but he's just not quite built for that, like that levity or that going back and forth. It's
Right.
he's built for a different type of conversation, and
Yes.
yeah, it was a little hard to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With Dave, it can be kind of awkward to. There's,
I don't think I'll have like any
Doesn't-
trouble like
doesn't-
filling the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, your personality seems good for. I mean, I've seen several, like when the last time I saw Dave, he was on Bridge the Divide, and Jay also had a good interview with him. But he's kind of like you, like it sort of comes naturally, and if it was with somebody like me, it would just be us sitting, like these weird lulls in the conversation, like, okay, so yeah, it'd be super weird.
All right. Well, we're going a little over 2 hours, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. I think my wife just came home from work, so we can go get some dinner.
Go do that before you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Divorce is expensive.
Yeah, it actually very much is. So for me, I'm going to try to link. Tell me more. I'm going to try to link your thing for tomorrow. Filters channel. For some reason, it's not coming up in my search. There you are. Do you have it pre-posted or no? Oh, you don't.
No. Oh, it's going to be a recording. Yeah,
okay.
like I like to record them because like if there's any like dead space or if like there's a problem that comes up, I like to have it edited out.
Okay,
yeah,
I gotcha. Okay, cool. So I posted Tell Me More's channel in the comments and or in the live stream chat. So yeah, if you're hearing this later on, go back and listen, and hopefully your interview goes really well. Any parting words, parting shots, anything anybody wants to say before we call it good?
Tim Bob, prenups only work if you both have money. You have to have money to have a prenup. If you're both broke when you get married, there's nothing to prenup.
All right. Well, cool.
that was a dead ringer.
All right. Well, great. Well, hey, thanks everyone stopping by. Gonna sign off.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Bye, chat.
Time. Then I'm
Thanks,
gonna
Eric.
click on that. Yeah, no problem. Click that. Do the music and yeah.